The year was 4387. The giant warship Vathric Ascendancy drifted in deep space like a massive silver leviathan. It was a flagship of the Zarati Galactic Empire. For 60,000 years, this empire had dominated most of the known galaxy. They had subjugated thousands of worlds. They had forced hundreds of alien species to kneel before them. No one had ever stood against them and prevailed. Grand Admiral Vessus Karu Thalmer stood on the command deck of the Vathric Ascendancy. He was a tall reptilian creature with emerald scales and piercing yellow eyes. His uniform was decorated with medals from 100 battles. He had served the Empire for over 200 years. He was respected, feared, and completely certain of himself. "Report," he said in a calm voice. His deep voice resonated across the command deck. A young officer named Lieutenant Moreska stepped forward. She was from a smaller alien species with soft blue skin and 4 arms. She held a glowing data pad in her upper hands. "Grand Admiral, all sectors report standard activity," she said, "but there is something unusual in the old archives. I found it this morning." Thalmer turned to look at her. "Unusual how?" Moreska tapped her data pad. A holographic image materialized in the air. It showed a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. "This is Sol 3, Grand Admiral. Our scouts surveyed the system 400 years ago. The species living there was called humans or Terrans. They were classified as primitive, pre-warp, not worth our attention." The Grand Admiral gave a small laugh. "400 years ago? Why are you showing me this now, Lieutenant?" "Because something is wrong, sir," Moreska said carefully. "We have dispatched 3 scout drones through that region in the past 6 months. None of them have returned. No signals. No data. Nothing." Thalmer frowned. His scales darkened slightly, which was a sign of deep thought. Scout drones were not expensive, but they rarely failed. 3 failures in one region was unusual. "What does the file say about these humans?" he asked. Moreska read from her pad. "They lived on one planet. They had just split the atom. They had basic rockets. They fought each other constantly in small wars. The survey team classified them as level 2 primitives. They concluded that humans would probably wipe themselves out within 200 years. Then they are likely extinct." Thalmer said with a shrug, "That system is deserted now. The drones probably struck an asteroid field or a solar storm." "Perhaps, sir," Moreska said, "but the area around Sol 3 is also near some hazardous star systems. Merchant ships avoid that entire region. We have no recent intelligence about it at all." Captain Orenvax, a senior officer standing nearby, spoke up. He was also a Zarati, slightly younger than the Grand Admiral. "Grand Admiral, perhaps I could take a small fleet to investigate. 3 cruisers should be sufficient. We can chart the area again and determine what became of our drones." Thalmer considered it for a moment. He did not want to waste resources on such a trivial matter, but 3 missing drones was a loose thread, and the Empire did not tolerate loose threads. The Empire preferred everything to be orderly and precise. "Very well," he said. "Take 3 cruisers. Go to Sol 3. Survey the system. If the humans are still alive, assess their technological level. If they have become a problem, handle it. If they are gone, chart the area and return home." "Yes, Grand Admiral," Orenvax said. He saluted and departed the deck. Moreska remained behind. She still looked troubled. "Grand Admiral, may I say something?" "Speak." 400 years is a long time, sir. Some species advance very rapidly. The Kralvesh went from primitive to space-capable in only 300 years. What if the humans... Thalmer raised a clawed hand to stop her. "Lieutenant, the Kralvesh were an exceptional case. Most primitive species either perish or remain primitive for thousands of years. The humans were fighting each other with chemical weapons when we found them. They were chaotic, violent, and unsophisticated. They are not a threat. They have probably annihilated themselves by now." Moreska bowed her head. "Yes, Grand Admiral. I apologize for wasting your time." "Not a waste," Thalmer said, his voice softening. "You noticed something irregular, and you reported it. That is commendable work. But do not trouble yourself over primitives. Our empire has confronted real threats. The Void Swarms, the Iron Collective, The dark ones. These are the things that matter. A tiny species on one small planet is nothing. Moreska nodded and departed, but as she walked back to her station, she felt something cold in her stomach. She could not explain it. Something about those missing drones disturbed her. Something about the silence from that region felt deeply wrong. Meanwhile, Captain Orenvax prepared his 3 cruisers for the mission. The Stone Fawn, the Bladeheart, and the Iron Sun were formidable warships. Each one carried 500 soldiers and enough firepower to obliterate a small moon. The crews laughed as they boarded. They joked about what amusing primitive tools the humans might have created. Maybe steam engines. Maybe rudimentary computers. Maybe they were still hurling rocks at each other. "Remember," one soldier said with a grin, "do not mock their weapons. It might bruise their feelings." "I will try to remain serious," another soldier replied. "But if they show me a metal sword, I might weep from laughter." The 3 cruisers ignited their engines and leapt into subspace. They vanished in a flash of blue light. The journey to Sol 3 would take about 2 days. Back on the Vathric Ascendancy, Grand Admiral Thalmer returned to his private chamber. He poured himself a glass of warm spice wine. He gazed out at the stars through his wide window. The Empire was peaceful. The Empire was powerful. The Empire would endure forever. He did not know that in 2 days everything would shift. He did not know that humans do not remain primitive. He did not know that 400 years of silence was not silence at all. It was preparation. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, the humans had been observing. They had been listening. They had been learning. And they had been constructing. And now, the Empire was sending 3 ships directly into their home. The Grand Admiral took a slow sip of his wine and smiled. Tomorrow would be just another ordinary day. Nothing significant would happen. He was very, very wrong. 2 days later, the 3 Zarati cruisers emerged from subspace near the edge of the Sol system. The blue light of the jump faded, and the ships floated silently in the darkness. Captain Orenvax stood on the command deck of the Stone Fawn, his arms folded behind his back. He anticipated seeing an empty system with perhaps a few small human satellites. Instead, he saw nothing. "Sensors," he said. "Give me a complete scan of the system." The sensor officer, a young Zarati named Keleth, tapped his controls. His claws moved swiftly over the panel. Then he stopped. He tapped again. Then he looked up with wide eyes. "Captain, our sensors cannot detect anything," Keleth said. His voice was unsteady. "There is some kind of interference field. It blankets the entire system. I can detect our own ships, but I cannot see any planets. I cannot see the sun. I cannot even determine the basic layout of the system." Orenvax felt a cold sensation run through his scales. "That is impossible. A sun is an enormous object. You cannot conceal a sun." "But someone has concealed it, Captain," Kellis said. "Or perhaps they have repositioned things. Or perhaps they are disrupting our sensors with technology one do not comprehend." The captain walked over to the main view screen. Outside, space appeared strange. The distant stars were visible, but the Sol system itself resembled a black curtain. Something was wrong. Something was profoundly wrong. "Contact the Bladeheart and the Iron Sun," Orenvax ordered. Asked them if they observed the same situation. A minute later, the communications officer replied, "Captain, both ships report identical problems. None of them can see into the system. Sensors are useless." Orenvax thought rapidly. He could turn back now. He could report this to the Grand Admiral, but that would appear cowardly. A Zarati captain did not flee from empty space. A Zarati captain did not fear shadows. "We will advance slowly." He decided, "All ships, proceed at 1/4 speed. Weapons ready. Shields up." The 3 cruisers moved forward like cautious hunters. They crossed into the strange darkness. The interference intensified. Even their communications became distorted. Suddenly, every speaker on every ship activated simultaneously. A voice spoke. It was calm, clear, and courteous. And most startling of all, it spoke in perfect galactic standard, the official language of the Zarati Empire. "Attention, Zarati vessels. You have entered the sovereign space of the Terran Coalition. Please identify yourselves within 90 seconds. Failure to comply will be considered a hostile action. Orenvax froze. His mouth fell open. His scales turned a pale green, which was a Zerati color of fear. How? He whispered. How do they know our language? Keleth was equally stunned. Captain, this is impossible. The humans were primitive. They could not have acquired galactic standard. That language is only taught within our empire. Someone instructed them. Or they learned it independently. Orenvax said slowly, But how? The voice spoke again. 60 seconds remaining. Please identify yourselves. Orenvax attempted to think like a soldier. He was still a captain of the Zerati Empire. He would not panic. He would not demonstrate weakness to these primitives. Open a channel, he ordered. Channel open, Captain. Orenvax cleared his throat. This is Captain Orenvax of the Zerati Imperial Navy. We are here on a peaceful survey mission. We mean no harm. We simply wish to... He never completed his sentence. There was no flash. There was no explosion. There was no warning at all. The Iron Sun, one of his 3 cruisers, simply vanished. One moment it was there, floating alongside his ship. The next moment it was gone. No wreckage, no debris, no fire, no bodies, nothing. 500 soldiers gone. A warship the size of a small mountain gone. Orenvax could not speak. His mind refused to process what his eyes had witnessed. Captain, Keller cried out, the Iron Sun is gone. I cannot detect any wreckage. There is no energy signature. It is as if the ship never existed. That is not possible. Orenvax whispered, That is not possible. That is not possible. The voice spoke again. This time it sounded slightly less courteous. That was a warning. Identify yourselves and depart immediately, or the next ship will also be removed. Orenvax felt something he had never experienced in his entire military career. He felt genuine, profound, cold fear. This was not an adversary he understood. This was something entirely different. This was something far beyond his comprehension. All ships, he shouted. Full reverse. Jump to subspace immediately. Go, go, go. The 2 remaining cruisers turned and fired up their engines. They plunged into subspace without even establishing proper coordinates. It was a reckless maneuver. A failed jump could send a ship into the heart of star or into an empty region of space with no path home. But Orenvax did not care. He had to escape. The jump was turbulent. The stone fong shook violently. Alarm screamed. Several systems failed. But somehow they emerged from subspace near the edge of Imperial territory. The blade heart materialized beside them, damaged but intact. Orenvax slumped into his command chair. His entire body was trembling. He could still see it in his mind. The Iron Sun disappearing like a candle being extinguished. 500 of his comrades gone forever. Captain, Keller said softly. Captain, we must report this. Orenvax nodded slowly. Yes, yes, we must report this. Open a channel to the Vathric Ascendancy. Priority urgent. A few minutes later, the face of Grand Admiral Thalmer appeared on the screen. He looked irritated at being disturbed. Captain Orenvax, report. Orenvax tried to speak, but his mouth was parched. He tried again. Grand Admiral, he said, his voice cracking. We have lost the Iron Sun. 500 soldiers are dead. The humans killed them. Thalmer's expression shifted. His yellow eyes sharpened. What do you mean the humans killed them? How? With what weapon? I do not know, Grand Admiral. The ship simply vanished. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. Captain, compose yourself. Explain clearly. Orenvax drew a deep breath. Then he said the words that would shake the Zerati Empire to its foundation. Grand Admiral, they spoke our language. They recognized our ship designs. They understood our tactics. They instructed us to leave. They have been observing us. They have been observing us for a very long time. Thalmer was silent for a long moment. His scales darkened. His claws gripped the arms of his chair. How long? He finally asked. I do not know, sir. Perhaps many years. Perhaps centuries. Return home, Captain, Thalmer said quietly. Return immediately. We have much to discuss. The screen went dark. Orenvax sat in silence. Outside the window, the stars appeared unchanged. But everything had shifted. The Empire was no longer alone, and the humans were not primitives anymore. The Imperial Council Chamber was the grandest meeting hall in the entire Zarati Empire. It was constructed inside a hollow moon that orbited the Zarati homeworld. The walls were composed of black stone that shimmered with tiny lights like stars captured in rock. A massive round table occupied the center of the chamber. Around this table, the leaders of the Empire assembled. There were 12 vassal species who served under the Zarati. Each one sent a representative to the council. There were the tall and slender Draco with their elongated fingers and silver eyes. There were the short and stocky Gompi with their dense fur and booming voices. There were the floating Zifferans who used anti-gravity belts to move. And many more. All of them appeared anxious. All of them had heard the rumors. Grand Admiral Thalmer stood at the head of the table. Beside him stood Captain Orenvax, who had barely slept in the past 3 days. His scales were still pale. His eyes were exhausted and haunted. The Empire's chief scientist, Professor Kelvin, also stood nearby. He was an elderly Zarati with gray scales and thick spectacles. "My fellow leaders," Thalmer began. His deep voice resonated through the chamber. 3 days ago, we dispatched 3 warships to a small remote system called Sol 3. Only 2 ships returned. The third was obliterated by a weapon we cannot comprehend, deployed by a species we believed was primitive. The council erupted in shouting. Several species began speaking simultaneously. The Gompi representative pounded his fists on the table. The Draco speaker rose in outrage. "Impossible!" shouted the Draco. "No primitive species can destroy a Zarati warship. They are not primitives anymore," Orenvax said quietly. His voice was hoarse. "Whatever they were 400 years ago, they are not that now." "Silence!" Thalmer bellowed. The chamber fell quiet. "Captain Orenvax will speak. Listen to him." Orenvax recounted the entire ordeal. He described the strange interference field. He described the voice that spoke perfect galactic standard. He explained how the Iron Sun disappeared in a single instant. He told them that the humans had been monitoring the Empire for a long time, perhaps hundreds of years. When he finished, the chamber was silent. Then Professor Kelvin stepped forward. He placed a data pad on the table. A holographic image appeared above it. It depicted a blue and green planet, Earth. "I have been studying humans for the past 3 days," the elderly professor said. "I revisited the original survey records from 4 centuries ago, and I have uncovered something deeply troubling." He changed the image. Now it displayed images of humans. Some were fighting each other with guns. Some were erecting tall structures. Some were piloting crude aircraft. When our survey team visited Earth, they composed a very brief report. They called humans primitive. They said humans were not worth examining. But they overlooked something critical. They missed a pattern. "What pattern?" asked the Zifferan representative. Kelvin displayed another image. It was a graph charting human technological advancement over time. The line climbed slowly for thousands of years. Then in the last 200 years, the line surged upward dramatically. It went nearly vertical. "Humans are extraordinary," Kelvin explained. "Most species advance gradually and consistently. Humans advance in surges. They can progress from stone tools to splitting the atom in only 10,000 years. That is remarkably fast. Our own species required over 100,000 years to reach the same milestone. But why?" asked the Gompi leader. "Why do they advance so rapidly?" Kelvin's expression grew grave. "Because their home world is a nightmare. Earth has exceptionally strong gravity. It produces storms that can devastate entire cities. It experiences earthquakes. It has volcanoes. It harbors thousands of diseases. And most critically, it contains many large predators that actively hunted humans. For millions of years, humans had to struggle simply to survive." He changed the image again. Now it showed ancient humans covered in fur and mud, fighting with simple spears against enormous animals. Our species evolved on a sheltered world. We had few predators. We had stable climate. We had abundant food. So we became composed and rational. But humans had to combat everything. They had to battle the weather. They had to battle the animals. They had to battle disease. And when they exhausted external threats, they began battling each other. That sounds horrific, said the Draco. How did they endure? By becoming superior fighters. Kelvin said, by becoming more intelligent, by inventing more effective weapons, by never ceasing. You see, my friends, humans possess a trait that almost no other species in the galaxy has. Even during peaceful times, they continue refining their weapons. They do this recreationally. They do it as a pastime. They do it because they cannot stop. The council members exchanged horrified glances. So even when they have no need for new weapons, the Zixophron whispered, they construct them anyway. Kelvin finished. Just in case. Always in case. Thalmor spoke now. His voice was heavy. 400 years ago, humans were still waging small wars against each other. They had just learned to split the atom. Now, envision 400 years of humans refining weapons recreationally. Consider what they have constructed. The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood. Everyone was afraid. Suddenly, a young officer rushed into the chamber. Her face was ashen. She clutched the data pad in her trembling hands. Grand Admiral, she cried. Grand Admiral, I have urgent intelligence. Speak, officer. A single human warship has departed their space. It is traveling toward our frontier. It is moving at a velocity that our scientists say is physically impossible. Nothing should move that rapidly, but it is moving that rapidly. Thalmor's eyes narrowed. Is it attempting concealment? No, Grand Admiral. That is a peculiar aspect. It is flying in a direct line. It is not attempting to hide. It is not employing any stealth technology. It is simply approaching, and it does not respond to our hails. The Grand Admiral stood tall, his warrior instincts engaged. How much time until it reaches our border? Less than 2 hours. Grand Admiral. Thalmor turned to address the council. We must act. I will mobilize the 7th Armada, 200 of our finest warships. We will intercept this single human vessel at the frontier. We will determine its intentions, and if it is hostile, we will eliminate it. 200 ships against one? Asked a Gompi leader. That seems excessive. After what happened to the Iron Sun, Thalmor said coldly, there is no such thing as excessive. The council agreed. The 7th Armada was summoned. 200 mighty warships assembled at the Imperial frontier. They formed an immense wall of metal and firepower. Nothing could penetrate such a formation. Nothing ever had. Thalmor himself accompanied the fleet. He stood on the command deck of the Vathric Ascendancy. Orenvax was beside him. Lieutenant Moreska was also present, now promoted for her early detection of a human situation. She monitored the sensors with apprehension in her blue eyes. Then she saw it, a small point on the long-range sensors, growing closer very rapidly. Grand Admiral, she said softly, the human ship is here. The main view screen revealed the approaching vessel. It was sleek and dark. It was smaller than a Zerati cruiser, but its shape was unusual and angular. Strange protrusions and configurations covered its hull. These were weapons, but weapons of a kind no one in the Armada recognized. The tactical officer suddenly gasped. His claws scraped against the console. Grand Admiral, this is impossible. That human warship is acquiring targets. It is locking onto every ship in our fleet simultaneously. All 200 of them. Thalmor's mouth went dry. He gripped the arms of his command chair. The moment had arrived. The galaxy was about to change forever. The human warship halted at the edge of weapon range. It simply floated there, silent and motionless. 200 Zerati battleships faced it in a colossal wall of metal. Weapons were armed. Shields were raised. Every soldier was prepared. And yet, the human ship did nothing. Grand Admiral, should we engage? Asked the tactical officer. Not yet, Thalmor said. His voice was controlled, but inside he was uncertain. Wait. For nearly a full minute, the two sides regarded each other across the black void of space. Then, suddenly, every screen in the Armada illuminated simultaneously. A face appeared. It was a human face. The human was a woman. She had short, dark hair and composed, brown eyes. Her complexion was a warm brown tone. She wore a black and gray uniform with silver markings on the shoulders. Behind her, a clean and simple command deck was visible. Other humans worked at their stations. Quiet and focused, the human spoke. Her voice was soft, but carried absolute confidence. And she spoke not merely in galactic standard, but in the special high court dialect of the Zerati. This was the most formal register of speech. It was a dialect reserved for emperors, nobility, and the most senior military commanders. It was almost never transmitted to outsiders. Grand Admiral Vessus Caruthalmer, she said. I am Captain Sarah Chun of the Terran Coalition Navy. I command a vessel TCS Prometheus Unbound. I speak on behalf of the people of Earth and of humanity's many colonies across the stars. Thank you for coming to meet me. Thalmer was stunned. She knew his complete name. She knew his rank. She spoke his native formal language with flawless precision. This was not possible. This should not be possible. Captain Chun, he said carefully, how do you know who I am? Saracen offered a small smile. It was a courteous smile, not a contemptuous one. Grand Admiral, humanity has been aware of the Galactic Empire for 390 years. We have studied your language. We have studied your history. We have examined your military doctrine, your political structure, and your technology. We know a considerable amount about you. We apologize for never introducing ourselves until now. 390 years, whispered Lieutenant Moresca beside him. Yes, Chin continued. Shortly after your survey team visited Earth, we realized we were not alone in the galaxy. One of your scout probes came down on our moon. We recovered it. We studied it. It required many decades, but we learned from it, and we decided as a species to remain concealed until we were prepared to engage as equals. Thalmer's mind raced. Why did you not make contact sooner? Because we did not wish to be subjugated, Chin said. Simply, we observe what the Empire does to primitive species. You assimilate them. You make them your vassals. You strip away their culture, their resources, their independence. We did not want that for ourselves. So we waited. We learned. We built. And now you are prepared? Now we are prepared. Thalmer straightened his posture. He had to reassert authority over this exchange. He was a Grand Admiral of the Galactic Empire. He would not be addressed this way by a single human captain. Captain Chun, he said in a firm voice, you have entered space claimed by the Empire. You have destroyed one of our ships. You have threatened our fleet. These are acts of war. I demand that you stand down your vessel. Submit to inspection. Surrender your command. If you do this, we may spare the lives of your crew. Sarah Chun did not appear afraid. She did not even appear irritated. She simply regarded him with those calm, brown eyes. Grand Admiral, she said, I had hoped we could bypass this moment, but I understand that you require a demonstration. So allow me to show you something. Please direct your sensors to the third moon of the gas giant in the Kelver system. It is an uninhabited moon. No one resides there. No ships are in the vicinity. Thalmer frowned. The Kelver system was 3 light minutes from his current position. Any light or signal from there would require 3 minutes to reach his ship. Sensor officer, he said, do as she says. Focus on the Kelver system. The sensor screen shifted. Shortly, they displayed a small, gray, barren moon orbiting a large, amber gas giant. Now observe, Chin said. She did not press any visible control. She did not issue any audible command. She simply gave a slight nod to someone beyond the screen's view, and the moon fractured. It did not explode. There was no fire. There was no flash. The moon simply divided into perfectly smooth sections, like a piece of fruit being sliced by a blade. The sections began drifting apart in gradual, almost graceful motion. It was almost beautiful. It was also absolutely terrifying. That is not possible, said Professor Kelvin, who was observing the feed from the Imperial capital. His voice came through the command deck speakers. Grand Admiral, that weapon struck the moon before the sensor data could reach us. The weapon traveled faster than light, faster than causality. That should be impossible. That contradicts the fundamental laws of physics. Yes, it does, Chin said evenly. We had to revise certain principles of physics to make it function. That took us approximately 80 years. Thalmor could not speak for several seconds. His throat constricted. His claws felt numb. Sarah Chun continued in her soft, measured voice. Grand Admiral, I want to be entirely transparent with you. At this moment, my ship has targeting solutions locked on every single one of your 200 warships. I can eliminate your entire fleet in less than 1 second. I also have targeting solutions established for your Imperial capital world. I can reach it from here, 3 sectors away. And I regret to say, I also have a solution designated for your personal residence on your homeworld. Your family is there, I believe. Thalmor felt the warmth drain from his scales. His wife, his daughters, his young grandson, all within reach of this one human vessel. Yes, he whispered. I have absolutely no intention of harming them. Chin said immediately. I tell you this only so you fully understand my position. I am one captain commanding one ship. Humanity has many more vessels, many more, and numerous ones are larger and more formidable than mine. I am not here to intimidate you, Grand Admiral. I am here to prevent a war. Because if conflict begins, the Terran coalition will prevail, but millions of innocent people on both sides will perish. I do not want that outcome. Do you? Thalmor closed his eyes. Every instinct within him demanded that he fight, that he order his fleet to open fire, that he fall as a warrior rather than yield. But he was not a reckless young soldier. He was a seasoned commander, and a seasoned commander recognizes when a battle cannot be won. No, he said quietly. I do not want that. Excellent, Chin said. Her voice became warmer. Then let us speak, Grand Admiral, not as adversaries, but as equals. The Terran coalition has no desire to conquer the Zarati Empire. We do not want your worlds. We do not want dominion over your people. We have no ambition to rule you. We want only one thing. We want to be left alone. We want to live freely. We want to explore the galaxy as an independent people. And what do you offer in return? Thalmor asked. Peace, Chin said. A treaty of mutual respect. Equal standing in all galactic matters. Trade, if you desire it. Shared scientific endeavors, if you desire them. Friendship, if you desire it. But most importantly, Grand Admiral, security. For you, for your children, for your grandchildren, for all the species of your empire. If you accept peace, humanity will never be your adversary. The Grand Admiral gazed at the sleek, dark ship on his view screen. One ship had dismantled everything he believed he understood about the galaxy. I will need time to confer with my council, he said. Of course, Jim replied. Take all the time you require. I will remain right here. But, Grand Admiral, please choose wisely. The connection closed. Thalmor stood in silence. His 200 warships suddenly felt very, very small. The council session that followed was the briefest in Zarati history. It lasted only 20 minutes. There was genuinely nothing to debate. The humans could destroy them. The humans had chosen not to. The humans were extending peace. There was only one rational response. The Empire accepted the treaty. 3 weeks later, a peace ceremony was held on a neutral space station in deep space. The station was called Harmony Point. It had been constructed rapidly by both sides as a shared venue. It was remarkable. The Zarati had built one half using their characteristic smooth, silver metal. The humans had built the other half using their distinctive sharp, dark metal. Where the two styles converged in the middle, the contrast appeared striking, but also compelling. Representatives arrived from across the galaxy, not just from the Zarati Empire and the Terran Coalition, but also from many other species. Some had been silent vassals of the Empire for thousands of years. They came to witness this historic occasion firsthand. Grand Admiral Thalmor stood in the center of the main hall. He wore his finest uniform. Every medal he had ever earned gleamed on his chest. Beside him stood Captain Sarah Chun. She also wore a formal uniform, black with silver markings. She appeared small beside the towering Zarati, but her eyes were steady and serene. The two leaders signed the treaty with ceremonial pens on a commemorative document. Then they clasped hands. It was the first time in the long history of the galaxy that a human and a Zarati had shaken hands as equals. Commander Moreska, recently promoted, observed from nearby. She recalled the morning when she first presented the Grand Admiral with those missing drone reports. That felt like a different lifetime. She had sensed something was wrong. She had simply never envisioned this. In the months that followed the treaty, humanity gradually emerged from its long concealment. Human vessels began traveling the galactic trade routes. Human ambassadors established offices on Zarati worlds. Human scientists collaborated with Zarati researchers on joint endeavors, and the galaxy began to discover who these humans truly were. The first revelation was that the Terran coalition was not a unified empire. It was not even a single nation. It was a loose federation of thousands of human colonies distributed across many star systems. Each colony maintained its own government. Each had its own distinct culture. Some were democracies. Some were not. They disagreed with each other frequently. They traded with each other. Occasionally, they had minor disputes. But when confronted with external threats, they invariably stood united. That was the one principle humanity had absorbed from its long history on Earth. Contest each other if necessary, but never permit outsiders to fracture you. The second revelation was that humans were not combative in their everyday existence. Everyone had anticipated humans to be aggressive and discourteous. Instead, they were intensely curious. They loved to discover new places. They loved to master new languages. They loved to sample new foods. They laughed frequently. They told jokes, many of which the Zarati initially could not follow. They composed songs and poetry. They produced artwork and films. They welcomed alien ambassadors into their homes for shared meals. A young Gompi diplomat authored a report for her government that circulated throughout the galaxy. She wrote, "The humans are bewildering. They can shatter a moon effortlessly, but they weep when their companion animals die. They possess weapons beyond our comprehension. Yet they also observe a tradition of distributing sweet treats to children on a particular day of the year. They are simultaneously formidable and compassionate. I am uncertain what to make of them, but I find that I like them." The third revelation, however, was the most significant, and it served as a reminder to everyone why humanity had inspired such apprehension. Approximately 6 months after the treaty, a Zarati admiral named Grafkul declared that he did not acknowledge the new peace. He was an aging, proud warrior who could not tolerate the concept of humans as peers. He gathered a modest fleet of loyal ships. He chose to attack a small vassal planet that had recently sought Terran coalition protection. He wished to demonstrate to the galaxy that the Empire remained powerful, that humans could be defeated, that the established order still mattered. His assault lasted fewer than 10 minutes. Grafkul's fleet emerged from subspace near the small planet. They positioned to open fire. Before they could discharge a single weapon, every ship in his fleet simply vanished, exactly as the Iron Sun had vanished months before. No wreckage, no bodies, no explosion, just empty space where a fleet of rebel warships had been. There was no warning. There was no dialogue. There was no clemency. The message was unambiguous. Peace with humanity was genuine, but violating that peace carried a cost. And the cost was everything. After that day, no one in the galaxy ever tested human patience again. 2 years following the treaty, Grand Admiral Falmer stood on the observation deck of the Vathric Ascendancy. He was watching a convoy of Terran vessels pass. They were transporting medicine to a vassal world suffering from a severe plague. Human and Zarati physicians were working side by side to preserve lives. It was a peculiar sight. It was also a magnificent one. Commander Moreska joined him at the window. She had become his most trusted advisor. She was the one person who had foreseen the danger approaching. "Grand Admiral," she said softly, "may I ask you something?" "Of course, Commander. What do you believe humanity truly is? You have held many meetings with them now. You understand them better than most." Falmer was silent for a long time. He looked out at the stars that no longer belonged exclusively to his empire. He reflected on the 60,000 years of Zarati history. He thought about all the wars, all the conquests, all the pride. And then he thought about 400 years of silence from a small blue planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. "Commander," he he said at last. "Our empire spent 60,000 years becoming powerful. We conquered. We ruled. We believed ourselves the greatest species in the galaxy. We believed no one could ever rival us. And we were correct for a very long time." He paused. His age scales caught the starlight. "And then, in only 400 years, a species of small primates from a single, fragile world surpassed us entirely. They did not accomplish it through conquest. They did not accomplish it by subjugating others. They did it by being left undisturbed. They did it by refusing to accept that they were primitive. They did it by developing weapons recreationally, even in the absence of war. They did it by never, ever being satisfied. So, what are they, Grand Admiral?" Falmer gave a small, weary smile. "They are a lesson, Commander. They are a lesson for every species in the galaxy. They are a reminder that you should never judge a species by what they are today, because you cannot know what they may become tomorrow." Moreska nodded slowly. "And also," Falmer added quietly, "they are a warning. Humanity simply wished to be left alone. That was all they ever desired. And the galaxy, in its arrogance, nearly denied them that modest wish. We nearly provoked war upon ourselves because we could not conceive that a small species might deserve peace." He turned away from the window. "We were fortunate, Commander. We were very fortunate that humans are benevolent. Another species possessing their power might have annihilated us all. But humans selected peace. We must never forget that. We must teach our children and our grandchildren and every future generation to honor this peace, because the day we breach it is the day the galaxy ends." Moreska gazed out at the stars one final time. Somewhere out there, far away, was a small blue planet called Earth. 400 years ago, it had been overlooked, dismissed, forgotten. Now it stood at the center of a new galactic era. The humans were out there exploring, building, improving, always improving, never stopping. And the galaxy, at long last, had learned to let them be